Christmas is one of the major festivals of the calendar. It celebrates the birth of Jesus, and at Christmas time we remember particularly the stories of the birth of Jesus. I know that you're going to be making mince pies, and mince pies have become quite a staple of an English Christmas. Those traditions developed over many centuries, and the foods that were available at that time of year were perhaps significant by their scarcity. They're still a sign of something which is luxurious, a little bit exotic as well, from the herbs and spices that are used. At the centre of Christianity is a meal, Holy Communion or Eucharist or the Mass, where we share the bread and wine as the body and blood of Christ. But we do associate certain foods with certain festivals, and mince pies, I suppose, have become that little exotic thing which reminds us of the gifts that we give each other at that time of year, which are themselves a reflection of the gifts that the wise men brought to the infant Christ.
When the children arrive, it's very important to establish all these rules about food hygiene and health and safety. So it's very important to advise them to wash their hands first of all. If you have got access to aprons, give them an apron and then show them how to tie it. Before the class, tell the children what kind of equipment you are going to be using, which equipment could be potentially dangerous, things like knives. Just make sure your adults are always supervising them and just making sure that you're going to avoid that potential accident. The most important thing is to tell them the aims and objectives of the class. We're making mince pies, but why are we making them?
Jesus' birthday.
The birthday of Jesus Christ, yes? Always remember, the aims and objectives is making the connection between religious education and food.
So the first part of the class is where we show the children how to make the mixed spice mix. Now this is a key ingredient in the mincemeat, and it's a component that we're going to teach them on their own as a way for them to learn about the different spices and their significance in foods at this time of year. What we recommend is that you get hold of the ground spices, and you're going to need a little jar, and adding all the ground spices into a jar, engage with the children, get them to shake it, and there you have your mixed spice mix. And as part of that, if you can get hold of some whole spices, this is a really good way to get the children engaged, to get them to see the cinnamon, the whole nutmeg, maybe talk about where the spices might have come from.
So basically it comes from a special tree that they just scrape it down and then do it in a swirly shape.
So this is the bark of the tree, isn't it? The next thing is to get the children really involved and hands-on. And at this point, if you haven't done so already, we recommend that you break the group into teams of 4. For each station of children, the recipe you've been given will make 4 trays. So we recommend at the start of the class, before you start teaching, you break down the recipe, you divide it by 4. The quantity you can see here is roughly the amount of dried fruit that you're going to need for a quarter of the recipe of mincemeat. And then it'll be 1 orange, 1 apple for each student. And then this is how we recommend you measure out the suet and the sugar and have it ready measured out. We recommend a chopping board with a damp cloth underneath so it doesn't move, an apple peeler, a good child-friendly knife, a mixing spoon, a zester or grater of some sort, and some sort of juicer. So that this way the children can just do the preparation of the juicing and zesting of the orange. They can peel and chop up the apple. That all goes into the dried fruit mixture. They add in the suet, they add in the sugar, a quarter of a teaspoon of the spice mix, and then they just get to mix it up. Do you like the smell? Does it smell of Christmas? Okay, so we're moving on to the pastry segment of the class now. And the important thing to know here is that each team of children will need to do 1 recipe of pastry. If you know you've got 4 or 5 teams of children, you're going to make either 4 or 5 times the pastry in advance and have that chilling in the fridge. And then for the class, we want to demonstrate to the children how to make the pastry. Weighed out ahead of time, we'll have your flour, your 100 grams of butter, 1 egg yolk, some sugar and some salt. Put the butter in the flour, And then the key word you're telling them is they need to be creating a mixture that looks like damp sand. And one nice tip is if you've got a nice big bowl like this, you can be doing it with one of the children because everybody can get their hands in and it's quite interactive. That's what you're looking for, okay? And then we need something to bring it together. So because this is quite a rich thing, we're going to put an egg in it. An egg yolk. Out of the fridge, you'll have, here's one I made earlier style, wrapped in cling film, some nice rested pastry. So each team will get their own batch of pastry, which will be enough to fill one of these mince pie trays. You also need to have them a rolling pin, some flour, not too much because kids tend to go crazy when they get given this kind of flour. So the important thing to tell them is small amounts of flour, because if they work too much flour into the pastry, it's going to go too hard. And then something like this can be quite useful for getting it off the countertop, and then some cutters. And you just need one that's just slightly larger than the mince pie tray you're using. And then it's completely up to the kids and the group how they want to decorate, but it's quite nice to have these star shapes, which you can ask the children then, what does this mean, the Star of Bethlehem, and things like that. It's quite significant. Also, you'll have your ready-made mincemeat ready. So here we are, we're ready to show the kids how to roll out the pastry and get them to exert some even pressure across the pastry, making sure that it's nice and even, and then cut out their circle. Then as a team, they can get their mincemeat that they prepared earlier and they can just fill it. And then following that, you can get them to make a nice little decoration to go on top. And then once you've got the whole tray ready, that goes in the oven for 20 minutes at 180.
Always remember, the aims and objectives is making the connection between religious education and food. At the end of the day, what you want them to do is to go home with the knowledge of making a mince pie, but also, very important, the fact that they know why they're making a mince pie during Christmas time.